When you think of King George III, one image often dominates: the mad king confined by his illness. But standing steadfastly by his side, a formidable yet often overlooked figure, was his wife, Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. More than just a consort, she was a patron of the arts, a brilliant botanist, a devoted mother to 15 children, and a woman who wielded significant influence in a rapidly changing world. Welcome! I am Dr. Amy Boyington, and today we are delving into the extraordinary life and lasting legacy of Queen Charlotte, the unsung hero who quietly yet profoundly shaped a nation and whose contributions still resonate in Britain today. Born Sophia Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz on the 19th of May 1744 in the small, relatively obscure German duchy of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, she was the youngest daughter of Duke Charles Louis Frederick and Princess Elizabeth Albertine. Unlike princesses from larger, more powerful European states, Charlotte's upbringing was actually quite quiet, focusing heavily on education, languages, for example, she was fluent in German and French, and the arts, particularly music. She was described by those who knew her as intelligent, serious-minded, and possessing a strong sense of duty, qualities that would later serve her well. In 1761, at just 17 years old, her life took a dramatic and unforeseen turn. King George III, a young and earnest monarch of 22 years, was determined to choose his own bride rather than accept a political match forced upon him. He sought a Protestant princess of good character and without a powerful meddling family. Charlotte fit this description perfectly. After a rapid negotiation, and without ever having seen her future husband, Charlotte embarked on a momentous and famously rough journey across the North Sea to England. On the 8th of September 1761, she finally arrived, disembarking at Harwich and immediately beginning the long, dusty carriage ride towards London. The arrival was deliberately timed for the evening to avoid excessive public fanfare before the marriage. She met King George for the very first time just hours later at St. James's Palace. Accounts suggest a moment of nervous anticipation for both. George, though handsome, was notoriously shy, and Charlotte, petite and plain in appearance after her rough journey, was undoubtedly overwhelmed. However, they apparently exchanged a polite, if brief, conversation. With astonishing speed, the wedding ceremony commenced that very same evening, just 6 hours after her arrival. At 9 p.m, the young couple were married at the Chapel Royal in St. James's Palace. Charlotte wore a silver and white satin dress with a mantle of rich violet velvet lined with ermine. She also wore a diamond necklace and tiara and a stomacher completely covered in diamonds. It was a whirlwind, a true leap of faith for the young German princess, thrust into a completely alien world. She couldn't really speak English that well, and she was now married to a man she had just met. Yet, despite these extraordinary circumstances, a genuine bond began to form almost immediately between the two, laying the foundation for a remarkably devoted royal marriage. Despite the entirely arranged nature of their marriage, George III and Queen Charlotte quickly developed a deep affection, respect, and companionship. Unlike many royal couples of the era, their relationship was genuinely domestic and devoted, setting a new moral tone for the monarchy after the perceived laxity of previous Hanoverian reigns. They often breakfast together and dined together, enjoying walks and musical evenings, a truly intimate partnership. Their primary residence became Buckingham House, which Charlotte, with her eye for comfort and efficiency, transformed from a small ducal palace into a more suitable royal family home. It eventually became known as the Queen's House and served as the nucleus for what we know today as Buckingham Palace. Over the next 2 decades, Charlotte astonishingly gave birth to 15 children, 9 sons and 6 daughters, effectively securing the Hanoverian succession for generations. Their eldest, George, Prince of Wales, was born within a year of their marriage in 1762, followed rapidly by the others. Charlotte dedicated herself wholeheartedly to raising her children, instilling in them a strong sense of duty, piety, and an appreciation for education, morality, and the arts. She personally oversaw their education, choosing tutors, governesses, and ensuring they received a comprehensive grounding in various subjects. This focus on family domesticity was a cornerstone of their reign, presenting a stable and virtuous image of the monarchy to a public eager for reform. Beyond her roles as wife and mother, Queen Charlotte was a woman of intellect and refined tastes, becoming a significant patron of the arts, sciences, and education, truly embodying the spirit of the Enlightenment. Her deep love for botany was perhaps her most celebrated passion, shared enthusiastically with her husband. Together, they transformed the royal gardens at Kew, bringing in rare and exotic plant species from around the burgeoning British Empire. They appointed Joseph Banks, the renowned botanist and explorer, as Kew's unofficial director, cementing its status as a world leading botanical research centre even then. Charlotte was also an accomplished musician herself, playing the harpsichord and sponsoring composers. Johann Christian Bach, the London Bach, was her music master, and the prodigious young Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, at only 8 years old, famously performed for the King and Queen at Buckingham House, with Charlotte even setting up the music stand for him. Her personal library was extensive, boasting over 4,000 volumes across diverse subjects, reflecting her wide ranging intellectual curiosity. Charlotte's patronage extended beyond the purely aesthetic. She played a crucial role in the establishment of the Royal Worcester Porcelain Company, promoting British industry. More importantly, she was a significant advocate for education, particularly for women. She founded Queen Charlotte's College for the education of young women from noble families and supported numerous charitable schools for girls. Her foresight in fostering these institutions highlights her commitment to social improvement and the intellectual development of women in an era where such opportunities were very rare. Throughout her time as Queen Consort, Charlotte hosted drawing rooms and court presentations. These were formal, often elaborate ceremonial events where young aristocratic women, typically around the age of 17 or 18, were formally presented to the monarch. This was a crucial step in their official entry into adult society, marking their eligibility for marriage and social engagement. The first ball was hosted in 1780 by Charlotte's husband, George III, in honour of her birthday. The Queen stood next to a giant birthday cake, and debutantes curtsied to her. The ball, which continued to take place annually in celebration of the Queen's birthday, became the premier debutante ball of the London season. It's a tradition that, in spirit, speaks to her influence on shaping courtly etiquette and providing a dignified framework for elite social introduction, a custom that endured for centuries. And indeed, I'm sure you've seen it in Bridgerton. Queen Charlotte also maintained a fascinating relationship with Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, through their correspondence. Both were German speaking princesses who married into powerful European monarchies, and Charlotte, as the elder and more experienced queen, often offered advice to the younger Marie Antoinette through their letters. Charlotte frequently cautioned her about the importance of courtly propriety, duty, and maintaining the dignity of the monarchy, advice that, in hindsight, seems tragically insightful given the escalating political tensions in France. As the French Revolution spiralled, Queen Charlotte felt immense sympathy and concern for Marie Antoinette's increasingly dire situation. She campaigned for her fellow queen's safety, even offering sanctuary in England and orchestrating efforts to alleviate her suffering. Marie Antoinette's eventual execution in 1793 deeply shocked and horrified Charlotte, reinforcing her own conservative views and her fierce loyalty to the British monarchy, solidifying her commitment to traditional royal values in their period of revolutionary upheaval across Europe. The latter part of Charlotte's long reign was tragically defined by the king's increasingly severe and debilitating mental illness. The first major bout occurred in 1788, plunging the Queen into profound distress and public scrutiny. The King's exact diagnosis remains debated. Some believe it to have been porphyria, a genetic blood disorder that can cause neurological symptoms. Others, however, believe the King may have suffered from bipolar disorder with manic episodes. Regardless, during his episodes of mental disorder, the king suffered from extreme confusion, erratic behaviour, and sometimes physical pain. Queen Charlotte dedicated herself to his care with absolute loyalty, often confining herself to the royal apartments at Windsor alongside him. She acted with dignity and fortitude, shielding her younger children from the worst of his symptoms and managing the royal household under immense strain. This period also saw the first Regency crisis, as Parliament debated who should rule while the king was incapacitated. This is when conflict arose between the Queen and her eldest son, the Prince of Wales, because each suspected the other of desiring to assume the regency should the illness of the king become permanent, resulting in him being declared unfit to rule. Charlotte suspected her son of a plan to have the king declared insane with the assistance of Dr. Warren and to take over the regency. However, the Prince of Wales, in turn, suspected the Queen of a plan to have the king declared sane with the assistance of Dr. Francis Willis and the Prime Minister William Pitt, so that he could have her appointed regent should he fall ill again. Meanwhile, the poor king was put into isolation. He eventually ended up at Kew Palace in the gardens of Kew that he and Charlotte had created. He endured all sorts of terrible treatments, ranging from being put into a straitjacket, to being blistered, to being forced to vomit, to being made to have cold baths, all the way through to being kept in isolation away from his family. All of these things, of course, did not work and probably exacerbated his symptoms. As the king's health deteriorated further, particularly after the permanent onset of his illness in 1811, Queen Charlotte was officially appointed his guardian, the king's keeper. She bravely navigated the immense complexities of the Prince Regent assuming power, often finding herself in conflict with her eldest son, who had a very different idea about royal governance and lifestyle. Her primary concern was always the king's welfare and the dignity and stability of the monarchy. She almost became a reclusive figure, enduring personal suffering and isolation, but she faithfully visited her husband daily, even when he no longer recognised her or could communicate coherently. The Regency period, when her eldest son, George, Prince of Wales, was the regent, was undoubtedly one of the most challenging times for Charlotte. Her relationship with the Prince Regent was often strained, marked by his profligate spending, his numerous mistresses, and her steadfast loyalty to the ailing king. She found herself caught between her duty to her husband and her often difficult role as mother to a demanding and sometimes rebellious heir. Adding to her burdens were the complexities of her numerous adult children's lives. Of her 15 children, 13 survived to adulthood, but many struggled to find suitable lasting marriages or to lead settled, productive lives. Scandals surrounding their debts, love affairs, and unhappy marriages frequently became public fodder, adding to the pressure on the Queen. Charlotte did her best to guide them, arrange appropriate matches, and mitigate public perception, but it was an uphill battle. Despite her personal tribulations, Charlotte continued to perform her official royal duties, holding drawing rooms and formal events, albeit with less frequency. She maintained a crucial semblance of royal presence and stability during the king's incapacitation, an often unacknowledged contribution to the continuity of the monarchy. Queen Charlotte died on November the 17th, 1818, at the age of 74 at Kew Palace. She passed away peacefully with her eldest son, the Prince Regent, by her side. She had been queen for a remarkable 57 years, making her the second longest reigning consort in British history, a testament to her longevity and steadfastness. Tragically, George III wasn't even aware of her death. Charlotte's legacy is multifaceted. Her dedication, for example, to Kew Gardens helped transform it into a world-renowned botanical research and conservation institution, a living testament to her foresight and passion. Her patronage of education, particularly for women, laid important groundwork for future advancements in society, where female literacy and intellectual pursuits were often undervalued. As a sophisticated collector of art and books, she significantly enriched the royal collection and promoted cultural endeavours across the realm. Beyond these tangible contributions was her impact on her family. She was a steadfast mother and a steadfast wife. She kept her family together as best as she were able in a complex and difficult time. Her quiet influence and moral fortitude were instrumental in guiding the monarchy through one of its most challenging periods. Queen Charlotte lived through one of the most transformative periods in British history: the American Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, and the rapid onset of the Industrial Age. Yet, through it all, she remained a constant, steadfast presence at the heart of the monarchy. She provided stability, raised a multitude of heirs crucial for the Hanoverian succession, and nurtured a culture of learning, morality, and patronage within the royal household. Often overshadowed by the dramatic narratives of her husband's illness, the political upheavals of the era, or the late extravagances of her sons, Queen Charlotte was truly a formidable figure in her own right. She was not merely a consort, but a quiet force of nature, a devoted wife, a tireless mother, and an enlightened patron. Her life reminds us that true influence can be found not just on the battlefield or in the halls of Parliament, but in the enduring strength of character, in unwavering duty, and in the quiet determination to cultivate beauty, knowledge, and family. She truly was the unsung monarch who anchored a dynasty and shaped a nation. Thank you for joining me, History with Amy, as I explored the life of Queen Charlotte. If you found this journey into history insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And again, if you have anyone that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments.